Hello lovely viewers of Sharing Community, welcome back to your own channel, your own community. Thank you so much for your love and support for our visually impaired community. As always we say, sharing is caring. So please share, like and subscribe to receiving awesome contents. And also, love, live, love. Take care and see you soon.
Hello everybody on Sharing Community and welcome to another video by Alexandra Nigueta. If you want to know more about me, then look me up on Alexandra Nigueta, the Blind Soap Maker YouTube channel. Alternatively, you can support me by buying some of my products on www.theblindsoapmaker.co.uk. Hello Tom, how are you today?
Not too bad, thank you. What about yourself?
I'm quite good this morning. I'm really quite happy. It's a beautiful day. And my guide dog is at the bottom of my bed. And I just thought I'd call you to introduce you to all of our viewers on Sharing Community. So this is Tom Walker, guys. Tom, I'm going to leave it to you to introduce yourself.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Well, as you say, my name's Tom Walker. I do a range of different things, which your listeners might find interesting. I guess many people may know me from various programmes that I've worked on the BBC, including the In Touch programme, which some visually impaired people listen to. I've also done other things as well. I do a lot of diversity and employment training with various organisations. Still do some PR work for organisations, sort of press releases and recording of podcasts, and even do some training with people on how to record podcasts. And just in case I forget, I'm also a non-legal member of the Employment Tribunal, which means I'm one of the three people who sit and listen to cases and reach an adjudication.
Wow, well that is quite a busy load on your plate. I've got to admit that the thing that caught my eye with Tom here was his podcast.
Right, yeah, indeed. Well, I do also do podcasts. The podcast is called That Will Be the Day. I'll explain where that comes from shortly. But basically what I tend to do, although not exclusively, is interview visually impaired people about their stroke our lives. The feeling being that that blind people do have amazing lives and have often gone through a lot of really interesting experiences. But those stories aren't told for various reasons. Now, people might say, well, there's the In Touch programme, which of course there is. But that programme only lasts for, 18 minutes, and with the best will in the world, they can't cover the breadth of visually impaired people's lives. So I, do quite a lot of stuff trying to just really give people a chance to tell their story over a longer period. And there's plenty of interesting ones on there. The one that's just about to go up, hopefully, is an interview with a Northern Irish singer called Joe Kenny, who's just released his debut single, Chasing a Dream. So Joe and I have a long chat. Well, it's not that long, actually. It's about half an hour in total, if you include two tracks. So, yeah, that's the latest one. The one prior to that was an interview with a chap called Arthur Turner, who's written a book chronicling his recollections of being at blind school in the late 1960s and 1970s. So, but there's loads up there, and That Will Be the Day came about because a friend of mine is in a band called The Vow, which is based in Liverpool. I'll do that again. The name That Will Be the Day came about because a friend of mine who is in a Liverpool band called The Vow did a track called That Will Be the Day, which I really liked. And I asked Graham, my friend, whether I could use that track. And he said, yeah, of course you can. He said, there's no problem at all. And I said, yeah, so in return, we'll kind of promote the vow as much as we can. But also, when I thought about the title of the track, That Will Be the Day, I thought that'd be a great name for the podcast, actually. Because be a great name for the track, because That Will Be the Day kind of sums up how we feel in some respects. That will be the day when whatever we want to happen happens.
That's a really good way of putting it, because when I heard the podcast's name, That Will Be the Day, I thought, well, yeah, especially when it comes to employment, that'll be the day, as in, yeah, like anybody will take an interest, but That Will Be the Day does take an interest in ourselves, our lives, and how we want to achieve in life. And I really appreciate what you're doing. I really do. My favourite was about the book. That was one of my favourites. But I also like the controversial stuff you've done, like the idea of a robot guide dog. That was really controversial. I was sitting there thinking, well, yeah, if you're allergic to dogs but you love animals, what do?
Yeah, I mean, that was one I saw. Saw an article, in fact, on the robot dog, and just thought, that'd be interesting. So I contacted the University of California and interviewed the researcher on Zoom, and it was quite interesting. I think it was quite controversial for some people in that he didn't appear to have spoken to any visually impaired people about
that's what I thought was the most funny about it, to be honest, because I thought, well, isn't that like the first thing you do? But then again, I thought, how else is he going to get the funding, really?
Well, indeed, but I would have thought his supervisors may have advised him to speak to blind and partially sighted people, but anyway, for whatever reason, that didn't happen. And then afterwards, on the same podcast, I spoke to Donna Waring, who has trained her own dogs for various reasons, and she gave a kind of an expert analysis of the proposals and what her reaction would be. She wasn't completely against it, and in fact, some people have expressed interest in it. They said, yeah, I'd be quite keen to be involved in the research. So, we'll see what happens with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know, how did you get into podcasting? Like, how did you get into it, and what exactly drew you to podcasting?
Well, I think it from a professional point of view, it's a very satisfying way to work, because you're in charge of the podcast in a way that you're not when you do things, say, for radio or television. So I go out and interview somebody, and if I wanted it to be 6 hours, it could be. It wouldn't be. It would never be. But if I wanted it to be that long, then yeah, I could just do that. I could just and you can do within reason what you want. I mean, obviously, if you want people to listen to it, you've got to try and make it interesting and compelling. And a 6-hour podcast would probably bore the pants off people after about half an hour, really, I would imagine. So there's no point. But I like the freedom to be able to do anything. Again, much I enjoyed working for In Touch. It is only 18 minutes in length, and that is really suffocating.
Yeah.
Because you can't. You can't ever really cover anything in the kind of depth that you want to be able to, and often people's lives are far more complicated than just than easily kind of summed up in 6 minutes, 8 minutes, or whatever you get for the average item. And as I say, I just felt in particular blind and partially sighted people do have extraordinary lives in a lot of ways. I mean, I've had quite an extraordinary life. We've all been through an awful lot, especially those of us who went through the special school system. And so, it was I just felt that those stories needed to be told, and that podcasting is the medium of the moment. And so I just thought, you know what, it's worth having a go. And so some of them have been well and truly, listened to, and we get some response. And if people like them, great. And if they don't, well, there's thousands of other podcasts for them to
watch and listen to. For me, the thing about your podcast and other people's podcasts is the simple fact that A, I know I'm not alone. B, I've got examples of people achieving things that I've never even thought of trying before. And C, I've got ways in getting in contact with people when I need to.
Yeah, I think one of the things about the podcast is that one of the issues that a lot of visually impaired people experience is isolation. And so, being able to hear other people's stories, sometimes you might think, oh, yeah, that's me. I've had similar problems there. Yeah. So people, can hopefully feel slightly less isolated. But also, hopefully, as well, actually find that they've got hopefully really good material to listen to. And, in the first instance, that's the key thing. But if it works as some form of peer support, then that's even better, So, yeah.
So if anybody wants to watch your podcast, obviously we've seen it on YouTube. It is on YouTube. Or get in touch with you in order to be on your podcast, how do they go about it?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you about how I select subjects, really. And I kind of do two kinds of podcasts. The ones that you're referring to are the ones that interest me personally, and I think there's some journalistic merit too. Now, I don't charge for those. They're just out there because I enjoy doing them, and I think they're good for my profile, and they're good stories. The other podcasts I do are commercial podcasts for companies that think that a podcast may help them to market themselves more effectively, and I do charge for those. So those are the two. I mean, what I look for, as I say, is I like to find people who can talk, not just describe what they've done, but reflect on it as well. So if you listen to Arthur's interview, Arthur Turner, he provides a really great deal of reflection on what he's done. As to, you will think, if you listen to Joe Kenny's latest podcast and the one he recorded with me before Christmas, they are really, reflecting on the things that they've done. So they're not just describing, how they got from A to B, but they're looking, back on it and reflecting. And I think that's really, really important. And I guess, as well, there has to be an issue that a person that I find, interesting, because if I don't find it interesting, then I probably won't do it justice. So in terms of listening, the podcast is called That'll Be the Day, and I do post links on various platforms, VI Talk being one of them, but many other groups for blind and partially sighted people on Facebook. I also put them on Twitter, and I usually try and tag in organisations that I think would be relevant, if you like. No, I put them on LinkedIn. Now, the other exciting thing that I didn't know until fairly recently is that you can, if you've got one of these Echo Dot things, you can ask Alexa to play the podcast, and the way you do that is just by saying, Alexa, play the podcast, that will be the day, and she will play the most recent one for you. So I didn't know you could do that until recently, so I think that's a really exciting development.
That is very good, actually. That is really, really good.
Well, hopefully people are going to get into it that way as well, because some people don't like going on YouTube and on social media, isn't they?
Sometimes when you're not so great at tech, and I'm one of these people that aren't so great at tech, and I wasn't really taught any tech until I went to a sixth form blind college, because my school just said that they couldn't really afford the speech software and things like that, and it's just about organisation and communication failures, really. So I learned very late on. So when you learn things late on and you're older, I know that it can be quite difficult sometimes. So the Alexa really does open people's worlds up, particularly if it's kind of already set up, and then all you need to know is to know the right things to ask, really.
Well, that's right. You just say, Alexa, play the podcast. That will be the day, and it should work. It should be fairly straightforward. So if YouTube and Twitter and Facebook aren't for you, and you do have an Echo Dot, then Alexa should go off and find a podcast for you and just play it straight away.
Well, thank you very, very much for coming on here and introducing yourself, because I'm sure our audience members would love to watch or listen to some of your podcasts. And I'm sorry about the quality of the recording. It's just that obviously I'm on quite a low budget, and we're not monetized. We're volunteers at Sharing Community, so we try our best just to get the information out there. So thank you very, very much, Tom. And I'm really hoping that we get some good news.
Problem.
All right then.
No
So
problem
see you
at all.
later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.